Hello! Welcome back to Footnotes. We're very excited to welcome Amanda once more. And if you haven't been with us before, we're Stories to D4. We like to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, tabletop role-playing games in general, and if we can, bully our friends.
Especially the latter.
Yeah, that's been pretty accurate. We're going to be putting our dear friend Jake, who some of you may know as Silas, a little bit on blast here for his complete inability to roll dice. But before we dive into everything tabletop, let's do some quick announcements. First things first, I don't know how to say things any more than, oh my gosh, the DM lair rated our last session, and it was so wonderful. We had a bunch of people who got to come in, check us out. Thank you so much, and if you're still here from that, hey, stick around. Additionally, we have a new subscriber with Hugo Nowhere. Welcome to the channel. We really appreciate your support, and let's see if we can't keep things interesting for him. Lastly, we have two kind of point of order things to go over. The Discord should be available below wherever you're viewing this. We have a channel. We talk about the upcoming sessions. We talk about D&D. Jake makes a lot of really bad puns.
Yeah.
Wow, maybe we should just bully Jake today.
So I wanted to share about the Discord that anybody can join. But
Everyone can join.
But if you are a subscriber, you can link your Twitch account to your Discord, going into your settings and link those accounts. And then we do also have a sub-only room as well. So anybody can come in, but if you are a subscriber, an extra little room for you there.
And for those of you who aren't sure about subscribing, or if you're already a subscriber but you haven't done that yet, checked out the Discord yet, we're going to be this week putting some behind-the-scenes photos there, showing a little bit about what's going on with this big old table, showing the studio a bit, and I'm thinking maybe show some miniatures we've seen here in the past on the channel.
Ooh.
Additionally, we have one more big thing going on this month. Ooh, it's getting spooky in here. Halloween one-shot. So a couple Sundays from now, we're going to be having, it's all self-contained. If you're just joining us now and you haven't caught up yet, that's okay. It's going to be a small table, less players, maybe one or two that you've never met before, and they're playing all new characters. So it's just a self-contained little adventure. And if I've been asked a couple times what sort of thing we should be expecting, and I think my happiest way of putting it is Clue meets Scooby-Doo.
Ooh.
It's going to be a little more candy corn Halloween than
my version of Halloween.
I was gonna say Saw. Is Saw the other end from candy corn?
Maybe.
I'm bad at making spectrums. With that, you want to talk about this last week's session?
Sure.
Yeah.
I kind of think it was a very spicy one.
What happened for not many days passing?
Well, this is actually longer than the last couple sessions. Technically, this session was like 4 days, three of which took place at the very end.
Yeah, that was downtime in which we kind of brushed over that.
I was surprised we stayed that long, honestly.
Yeah, I thought it was just going to be a day, and then it was like
two.
3 days.
Yeah.
And taking a little bit of downtime, taking some time to breathe and allow the story to, the players to have time between, or the player characters to have time between sessions is a little bit useful, especially when you discover a weird dungeon beneath a cave.
Yeah.
And a fun cauldron that, your character wants to make acid out of. Finish making the acid.
Yes, Jake, Cluby-Doo is an accurate way to represent our upcoming one-shot. Now, that acid, you found it in that dungeon that we created, this abandoned, it looks to be some sort of hobgoblin outpost.
Mm-hmm.
And now you finished creating the acid itself being a useful little ranged weapon that you can purchase or make a bit of gold. Do you have any nefarious plans, and do I need to start preparing funerals?
No, Gwyn's gonna sell all that. She's fully planning on selling that.
Okay, because it costs you about, I believe they're 25, technically, I think rules is written they're 25 gold per unit.
Mm-hmm.
You spend about 25 gold and completed 4 charges worth.
Yep.
Just to clarify, for those of you, we had some questions about the mechanics behind that. It wasn't the case. It's not the case where you can keep doing this forever, making 25 or 4 for 25. It was 4 almost completed uses worth.
Mm-hmm.
And that's your first bit, I would say, decent bit of alchemy you've been able to do here.
Yeah, besides the wolf's will.
Wolf's will. Yeah, we've had a couple of opportunities. It seems that this is going to be kind of a big part of your whole deal. Is there a sort of project, it may be a new thing you'd like to make?
I mean, Gwynwyn has her big overall arching plot that she wants to eventually do.
The big one is maybe a little further down the line.
So she wants to try to keep making random things that she finds and keep experimenting with things, seeing what works and what doesn't. And so just kind of anything she sees.
We should keep a recipe book for you. Maybe we could put down, because I have, every time I've introduced something alchemical, I've got the specific ingredients we're using for it. I believe this one was a specific form of limestone and Apexian citrus.
Mm-hmm.
I got some eyebrows from Victoria during the session. For those of you who may not know, actually, I guess most folks, we haven't had Apexia yet.
No, yeah, we haven't had Apexia.
Apexia is an island in our setting, which I'm just going to describe as having copious amounts of megafauna. There are some large creatures there, and to go along with that, of course, where you'd have big animals, maybe big citrus trees. We'll see what's going on there maybe in the future. I think Clella would not be happy with the idea of traveling to Apexia.
Yeah, probably not.
They're not a fan of these sort of creatures that live there. Speaking of that hobgoblin, you both are playing somewhat supportive characters.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not that you can't stand alone. The two of you are terrifying. You scare me. I have nightmares worse about this than I do about Curse of Strahd. You got to watch your party fail at striking Karguts the Hobgoblin for a while. What was that like as a player being in that situation?
So, it's hard because we also, I mean, Gwynwyn, I think, did the most consistent, and then Thorn as well, the most consistent damage.
You have some deck save for half stuff, too,
Yeah,
right?
I didn't miss at all. I hit every round.
Yeah, that was the thing.
Gross.
Gwynwyn was just like consistent, and then Thorn was right next to her. But I think that the way that I've been building my character is kind of intended to go in more of a supportive wizard direction, and right now what I had available to me and what spell slots I had, I really didn't have very many options to help.
Right, you did a lot of basic merengue. Like you were doing some wrist wriggling.
We were I was out of spells.
Elle and Ismini were almost entirely depleted.
I ended that with no spells.
And Silas is defective, and so the party was really running on a low tank.
So
We're all just teasing Silas. Jake's in the chat, and we do like to give him a bit of crap when
that
we
was
can.
rough rolling though, and I've had sessions like that. I used to make the joke still that I don't like to roll my stats online with like digital rollers because I do much better in like rolling physical dice. Every time I roll in like online, I have problems, and so it was just one of those like, hey, here's another die, let's see what happens. But you know, if you're rolling bad, you're rolling bad, and that's kind of how the session goes.
And I was right there watching Jake roll these
3,
bad rolls.
5, 6.
So many times
1.
he would roll with advantage and he'd get a 3 and a 5. It's like, nope, you're not hitting that.
And I'll admit, so he was a high armored enemy. He was wearing splint mail, a form of one of the middling forms of heavy armor.
Yeah, which is why
AC 17.
Is why I was doing the wisdom saves, because my other options are I have a +6 to hit, but I was like, if the other people around me aren't hitting, I don't know if I'm going to hit either. So I was worried. I was like, maybe it'd be better if we just let the DM roll the dice.
And so I typically sit behind the screen, and so I don't have as much experience as a player as the two of you. You've both at least one time or another have had a situation like Jake has had the last few sessions,
Even
where your
this
dice
campaign, I had a
do
day.
not work.
Yeah, I had a day this
What do you
campaign.
do?
Cry about it. But
Afterwards, you
well,
cried afterwards.
right. I may be superstitious.
Don't be superstitious. Don't be superstitious.
And all of my dice are currently sitting in their dice box with the highest face sitting upright. But
I'd go check, but you did show me
Yes.
when you did that.
yeah, they're all sitting beautifully up in their little, with all the highest faces up. I think that this was something that I had to learn in the last campaign, because being inherently competitive and wanting to,
You want to be you build characters, and you want to be exemplars and badasses. And at third level, you're talented folks.
right. But being so competitive myself, I've had to fold those failures into the character, and kind of try to make it work. So maybe I had a really rough day because we were playing in longer sessions. Our sessions were like up to 8 hours before sometimes.
Yep.
And so if you're rolling for an 8-hour period, full work day, and you just trash the entire
The good
time,
old days.
it can be very difficult. And so I've had to just kind of play off those moments like they're on purpose and fold that failure somehow into my role playing. Like, I couldn't hit in this fight, or I couldn't do X, Y, or Z in this fight because of something else going on in the world.
I think it's when the skill check rules actually can benefit players. I don't think it comes up as often.
Yeah.
So I think last session we had a circumstance where I didn't allow a player to roll a check because the DC would have been too high.
Yeah.
And I think similarly, if I apply that rule in reverse, because skill checks, there's no automatic success or failure with a natural 1 or natural 20. Rules is written. You can totally add that. Sometimes that's a good idea. But there are some times where I'm not going to ask for you to roll because if we take Silas, him trying to pick up a heavy object, and let's pretend I had him try to roll a strength check and he was too weak, and then Thorn comes and rolls a natural 20. It's really hard to justify that in certain cases.
Yeah.
And so I think when a player's having those hard dice rolls, you've got to do something with them. Now in battle, it's very hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I can't change his armor class. His armor doesn't just break. His weapon doesn't shatter. He was a hobgoblin. Imagine if he had had a shield.
Yeah. Nobody would have hit.
I think at that point you'd have to overrun.
Yeah.
And
Or an Amanda at him.
yeah, just throw Gwen Win. But
Dwarf yeet.
But that's the hard part about playing a character and having those consistent failures, which we're all gonna have those days where we're just not rolling well. And then, only playing once a week, which, I mean, that's pretty standard. People play like maybe once a week, once every other week, once a month. But, just going from session to session and not having that hang over your head, because I know that I had a really bad session, and then the next time I came in, I was like, oh man, I rolled so bad last time, and it kind of...
Jake carried over 2 sessions in a row.
Yeah.
He actually mentioned here in the comments that he bought new dice.
I also bought you new dice. I bought 3 new D20s for you.
We've got you, Jake. Well,
Yeah.
Amanda does. I didn't do anything
And
for this.
I went into the closet and found the bag of dice and was throwing D20s because I know, okay, from some of the discourse I've seen around dice and how you roll your dice and what you do, like obviously we've all got our different methods of rolling. I'm over here looking for dice.
Mine is
now.
to roll high numbers. That's my method. Why haven't you all tried?
Yeah, I'll take a D20.
Do you need dice?
Yeah, because I mean, like,
Oh, are we getting into dice mythology?
I'm getting into dice mythology.
All right.
So, all right, let's see. I may not actually roll any dice, but so there's this thing
Oh,
about...
come on. We like the clickety-clackety sounds.
We like the math rocks. But, like, there's this one thing I saw online of somebody saying, like, we talked about before, like, whenever you roll disadvantage, roll 2 dice. Somebody was very much on the side of don't roll 2 dice. Roll the same die twice to give it a second chance. So, like, okay, I rolled a 7. Now let me roll it again. Give the same guy another chance. Oh, I got a 19. So, like...
Gosh.
So, see, like...
Your dice.
Maybe, and this is about the human behavior pattern, like, thing, but, like, that makes you feel good, right? It's no different than rolling 2 dice, but I like this, and I've done it before, where I'm rolling real bad, so if I've got advantage or disadvantage, I'm sticking with 1.
Now,
And I
sort
also
of...
theme my dice to my character, so that I have, like, dice for somebody.
And that theming is why we'll never have an orange player character, because none of you are allowed to theme your dice orange.
Hey, you did roll on that one with the orange die. It did betray you.
Yeah.
Did...
I wished for the failure. I mean,
It was more narratively interesting for you to fail, so the orange die willed it.
Careful watchers of the last session will notice me place a very subtle dice hex on Jake.
Yeah. And then you did it to mine later after I went through the effort of putting on my die in the highest.
I did, and it didn't work.
I don't know yet.
Oh.
We haven't had a session since you put the hex on my dice.
You want to have a session right now? Can we have a session? Cut the mics. Let's go play a session.
Cut the mics. I'm just gonna make up a character right now.
Oh, good. That's actually sort of how we got you here at the table. In essence, you came over to hang out. We were going to play Smash Bros. Or whatever with Clella, and we just played an impromptu session.
Yep.
It was okay.
I remembered Clella's character so much better than I remembered my character.
I remembered my name wrong. I've been calling my character the wrong name for 2 years.
it was a one shot. You're allowed to forget.
Well,
And oh,
I know what
man.
happened. We were also playing Baldur's Gate 1 as a group, and I built a character that was like the character I played for that one shot in Baldur's Gate. Like, one of the two influenced the other, and they had slightly similar names.
How do you all? This is kind of. I know this is. We didn't discuss this at all beforehand, but it kind of really touches on a point that I think I've learned something about myself as a player, and I don't think it's a share. I don't think it's a universal, and I'd like to know where you lie. I love having a character with this growing history that's going to go between campaigns. I don't mind death, character death, all for it. Can totally happen, but I've had a one shot, or I've had one shots done before, or campaigns that haven't finished that I then wanted to take that character with that backstory and drop them somewhere else in the future. But I know a lot of other people who are I want to have 800 characters, and that's great.
I like bringing in old characters because it kind of reminds you of other games you played, and you're like, oh yeah, I've played that.
I want to be that way, but I also want to play every race class combination possible, a la Neverwinter Nights 1.
What if we
First
did
one?
some sort of super terrible dungeon and you came with 30 character
Tomb
sheets?
of Annihilation.
Oh, God.
With?
No, Tomb of Annihilation. Oh, I've got so many bones. I have like a closet full of bones to pick with the Tomb of Annihilation. Excellently designed. It's not what I want for a murder box.
Okay. Well, if you want to do a murder box, I am willing to come with all of the classes, willing to come with one of every class, totally different characters. I may do voices.
You're allowed 2 sentences of backstory for each.
Correct.
We're throwing them in the blender.
And not only that, but I'm willing to also not select the next character by selecting, but by putting the names in a hat.
Ooh.
I'm willing to do it. If you want to run.
Dirty talk.
If you want to run.
Random characters for me to butcher.
Jake, that's too many. That's too many combos.
Speaking of butchering, I want to talk about one of the rules in 5e. And don't worry, we're not going to the rules corner quite yet. Non-lethal damage.
Okay.
So rules is written, and this is not the way it's played at every table. Rules is written. When you declare a melee attack, you may have that damage be non-lethal. There's no chance of you accidentally killing someone. And that's something we didn't really use in our previous campaigns.
Early we were non-lethal, and then we very quickly.
Well, you fought an so campaign 2 later, by the time Amanda had arrived, campaign 2, the Guardians campaign, when we were playing that, by the time Amanda, you had joined, the enemy was this, we're going to butcher the kingdom that you love and where all your family lives, and kill your gods.
Right. Literal evil. Like,
There
there
were-
wasn't a lot of people that we could
Redeem.
Yeah, there was very.
Except Jake.
Except for Jake and his
Jake and the one.
wife.
Oh.
Question?
Jake's, we call them epilogue wives. Flavor wives,
Flavor
if you will.
wives.
Ooh, I don't like that. When we have Clella on, let's talk with them about, is that like a weird reverse fridging? Now, with non-lethal damage, how is this, with us using this rule sort of as written, at least for now, has it changed how you play the game, either mechanically or even how you're thinking about your characters?
It makes Gwenwyn very different because all of her attacks are ranged.
Yeah.
I mean, she does have a hand axe, but she's 25 feet in movement. She's tiny. She's not going to get close to people. So it was very much one of those, I go in, I know I'm going to kill.
Right. Because Finland killed early on as well, because that was basically all I had was spells.
You used a gun for a while.
Okay,
too.
yeah, I did shoot people with a gun.
You shoot people with a gun, and even when you were in melee, and this is an interesting thing to note, there are ways to kill using grapple. Grappled may seem like it doesn't do damage, but when you grapple someone inside of a bonfire, they tend to take damage.
It was a fireplace.
It was a fireplace.
I was immune to fire damage.
It's all reassured.
I'm just
okay,
gonna stare
Victoria.
into the distance.
It's just 1,000-yard stare. I remember the war.
I do
The
remember
flames,
the war.
the smell of burning bugbear.
That or Dragonborn.
And black-scaled dragonborn.
Dragonborn. So, but that's the thing that I think is very interesting, because going into the campaign, we all have our ideas of what our characters are going to be or do, and Gwenwyn has been more murdery because of the fact that you can't basically not, you're either not attacking or you're murdering.
And it works so not when you're in a cave or not when you're fighting an unintelligent monster, but when you're out about, when you got attacked in the Tenderman farm a few sessions ago, the bandits ran away. You shot them with firebolts and then they tried to run away. Now, in one case, they tried to run away and you shot them anyways.
She was attacking. I will stick with that one. She was still attacking.
Who was she attacking?
She was attacking Silas. She was
that's
going to cast a spell.
That doesn't seem like it's a healthy thing to do.
No.
Not a good idea for your longevity.
And
No.
so with that, I think it's tough. I think one day we may talk about house rules, even just if it's particular damage types. Like I could there's an easy one. I want, or at least for me, this seems pretty intuitive. I could see us talking about force damage being able to be done non-lethally.
Yeah, but for example, I was playing a bard. I was casting Vicious Mockery. I have killed multiple people with Vicious Mockery.
Those were sick burns.
They were such sick burns that people died. That's the thing.
That's some ugly barnacle energy.
It was really, really difficult to play and be, because again, I was also a good aligned character then. Was a good aligned character. Now I'm not, I guess, but it's hard because now it's like, oh, I have a pistol and I have insults.
Now, I'm curious,
Yeah.
is there any consideration to having some sort of melee sidearm or something for they're looking hurt, let's go club them unconscious?
Again, though, I have like 25 feet of range and Firebolt's 120. If I'm firing at someone who's 70 feet away, I'm not getting to them to knock them unconscious.
So one thing that I dislike about the non-lethal rules, or actually, it might even actually be the only thing. I don't mind that it forces a hard decision. That's okay. The thing is, I love when you all roll dice. I love when you all have decisions to make, how you're able to make things that influence the story. And while I love world building, I really enjoy it. There's a massive amount of information on my machine for the different settings and stuff. What's tough is that rules is written. I choose when things get death saves. Sometimes they just simply die. And so behind the screen, I often will use dice to make the decision because it feels odd. For example, if you have a very clear intent, I don't want him to die, but I have to use Firebolt. I have to make a choice. Does he fall and make death saves or does he not? And I'll let you know, kind of peeking behind the screen, how I've done that so far is actually looking how far beneath their hit points they've fallen. It's like if you hit someone who had 15 hit points and they're 7 underneath, that's real rough. If he's 1 under, it's pretty understandable. We have here, I do like our moderator here. Chubas had a great point that there could be some sort of role to do things non-lethally.
Yeah.
I'll admit, my gut says, I'll impose disadvantage if you'd like to try to suppress the lethality of a spell. That's very harsh. But I'm a firm believer if you make a house rule for something, it's good to start off in a way where it's weaker than existing options. And then if that's not a problem, then you can grow from there.
Well, for example, then, save or suck spells you can't not kill somebody with, like Toll the Dead.
I could very easily be persuaded for certain spells not having lethality to them. That's kind of what I was alluding to with Force, or even with Vicious Mockery. We kind of joked around about it. It's possible that we may end up altering our house rule for it, but it won't happen during a session. It'll be something that we talk about as a table. And if you're a dungeon master and you're thinking about this sort of thing, or if you're a player and maybe you want to be a little less murdery but want to keep using a bow and arrow, talk with your DM about it. It's definitely something that'll have to be resolved by having the conversation at your table.
And I know other systems have some ways. Pathfinder, I know in Melee you can do non-lethal with a penalty.
There is a penalty for non-lethal weapons. Additionally, non-lethal damage is technically a separate. It's technically a separate thing.
Yeah.
It's a little complicated for those of you who may have played only 5e because that system doesn't perfectly parallel.
Yeah.
Can we go to the rules corner? I've been excited to go to the rules corner for a while. So this time on Footnotes, we're trying a little different formula. We've got a little bit plans of where we're going to get between things. And I got a couple things in the corner today. So, do we want to start with Fiddly, or do we want to start with where your Dungeon Master fucked up?
Where your Dungeon Master fucked up.
I have a rules I messed up today.
I'll take it.
And I think you all should help me with the rule that I messed up. We've been messing up the help action for quite some time.
Uh-oh.
it works the way we wanted to, not the way that we thought it did.
So you mean I was right when I fought with you?
It's an interesting... No, so... Hey, I'm coming out here to be a little bit helpful on this.
I've been wrong for years now.
With the help action, there's two parts of it that I think... So one part we got right and one part we thought wrong as well. You don't help by targeting an enemy. Now, fictionally... Huh?
You try by targeting a person, correct?
You target the enemy, which we sort of already knew, and we thought the next attack against them. You target two people. The person you're helping and the target you're helping them with.
Okay, so you do
So
get
it's
to say...
more specific.
Great. I do like that because I'm going to be bad. If my alchemist is out of things and is casting acid splash every single turn, but Silas is over
Help
here...
the non-lethal.
I was going to say, but if Silas has got 2 attacks,
Ooh.
but Gwynwyn goes first in initiative, I would want to help Silas.
Yeah.
So being able to say, I'm helping Silas hit this guy with my familiar, for example, I would like more, because there's been a lot of times in the past where we've had to help action and it's been the less effective person because of the initiative order. Now, if you were going to do something insane, some crazy spell, then it would be you that I'd want to help. But a lot of the time I want to help the melee person.
Yeah. Or you go to help and then the next person who attacks has advantage anyways. It's like, well,
Right,
that doesn't help actually.
Because I do a lot of save spells, or a lot of the time I'm going to be doing... I want to be leaning more into that crowd control or supportive magic. So why play a blaster wizard when you can be a support wizard?
And it is declared when you do help. So, for example, for how you may use this in the future is when you're calling out to your delightful skull-headed raven
Yes, he's
to
adorable.
dive out. You give him instructions. Give them instructions. I actually don't know. He's a fiend spirit.
Yeah, he's a fiend. He's very cute. Him's fluffy.
When you instruct him to go and dive bomb and distract an ogre, for example, it may be the case that what happens is your instructions are clear and he begins doing his diving and distracting when Silas approaches.
Right.
So
Because I'll be honest, helping the melee person when they don't get flanking and they've got stuff, or for example, if you've got a paladin and they can smite, you really want to be helping out that paladin.
if you have a ranged rogue, giving access to, if they got a short bow, giving them access to sneak attack is a huge boon to the whole party's damage output.
So there's been these moments in the past. So I really like to hear that there's a little bit more specificity to help, which also means there's more decisions that you have to make.
We're going to have these. I'm going to try. Oh, this is a decision I've made. I'm going to try to use footnotes somewhat here in my rules corner to keep me a bit honest. There are going to be mistakes that I make here, but I think there's going to be a lot more good times than errors here. But I want to address them because it can help. They'll help me out. They'll help keep me honest.
My familiar is going to be a lot better now.
Your familiar was already insane.
Yeah, but he's gonna be coming out more, I think, in combat.
Yeah.
I have more rules in the
I
rules
did write
corner.
in bright red that I need to remember my familiar in combat.
I have a fiddly rule, and I have a helpful rule I've stolen from another system that we use here at our table. So for the fiddly rule, I want to talk about consent. Yes, that is consensual teleportation. In all of its forms, teleportation is inconsistent, and consistency is excellent. Finland, Victoria, you've cast the spell teleport as Finland. Is that correct?
Once or twice.
A few times?
Once or twice.
Dimension Door?
Never.
Never.
Never cast him in.
Never cast Dimension Door. Well, both those spells only work on willing participants.
Yes.
That's excellent. You know the spell Banishment, however?
Yeah.
Well, you can banish someone, but they get a saving throw.
Right.
We use a house rule that
Yes,
you may
we
not
do.
realize is a house rule, and maybe you do, maybe you don't, that we allow people that are aware of saves to willingly fail them. I'm going to attempt to force push someone over a ledge. I'm not going to try to resist. I fly off for whatever reason you want to do so. So that's a house rule. Spell Plane Shift. Going to that one. For willing creatures, there's no save, and for unwilling creatures, there is a save. And then we get to the odd one out here. So you've noticed a theme. If you're unwilling, you get a saving throw.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Or you don't get to go at all.
Or you don't get to go at all. Teleportation Circle doesn't care if you're willing or not. Now, you might say, well, Teleportation Circle has a longer casting time. But I say to thee, Wish. Wish reduces the spell to casting time of an action. And depending on how you interpret the circle itself, some people use it as a glowing portal, you can teleport someone without a save using the spell Wish, which is not a power level problem. My point is this. Specifically the spell Teleport, which I would argue is very similar in power to Plane Shift for how you could use it.
I'm looking for another spell in particular.
The spell Teleport, it seems to me, I'm surprised, and I'm gonna call it fiddly, and I don't like it, that it doesn't have the option to be used with a saving throw as per Plane Shift. And now there's always going to be problems of like, well, that could be too powerful. What if you have people being teleported way far away? But again, Plane Shift lets you go to a different dimension. You can literally send someone to hell for a save. That's maybe the most save or suck spell around. Yeah. Both these spells, things you won't necessarily have access to unless your DM helps you out or you're in a very high level campaign. But generally speaking, Teleport, Plane Shift, similar tier of play. We see them often used in Consort, such as when you had Clella being your personal taxi around the
She was
multiverse.
a very good taxi, I will say. Props to Clella for being willing to teleport us and transport us everywhere we wanted to go.
So,
yeah, it's like, oh hey, are you gonna let us have a couple of your spell slots
so
every day?
The reason one of the reasons I bring this up is actually, I want you to think about an evil wizard, okay? And I'll tell you this is not the evil wizard discussed in session 7. But then you have an evil wizard who wants to, having brought one of your players low or compelled them with a mind effect that makes them weak to various saving throws, who wants to teleport away with them. It's only possible if they leave the dimension, but not if they leave where you are to somewhere else without wish. And I kind of think that's odd that there's not a dimension door-esque spell that requires a saving throw for you to forcibly steal a dwarf. It's odd.
Yeah.
Well, transport via plants is the answer.
Transport via plants requires you to walk through the plant, so it requires your movement.
Does it require you to? It says you have to step through it, yes, but I mean, is there not an argument
Yes.
that you shunt somebody into a tree?
It's been a while, but I will mention that that a long time ago you fought a group of dark dryads.
Yeah.
With a very similar premise, who were pulling you through both green mirrors and strange trees throughout that building.
I do miss those mirrors already.
Oh.
I miss the mirrors.
So bad.
Well, so if let's talk in hypothetical homebrew territory.
Okay.
If you were take Dimension Door, 500 feet of teleportation, you may bring one person with you.
They must be willing.
It must be willing.
Great.
How would you feel if there was a similar spell? Let's say it works almost the same distance, same casting time, same school of magic, of course, and it allows you to teleport yourself and a creature you can touch, perhaps with a melee touch attack and a charisma saving throw. So 2 dice rolls that could possibly flunk you out.
I could see that if it was the 2 dice rolls, right? You have to both land the touch, and then they get a chance to like resist the magic.
Because banishment, which is a teleportation, shifts you out of the plane.
But it's only for a minute.
one.
Yes, right. I was saying moving yourself or moving someone else.
Banishment, though, is only 1 total die roll, though. In 5th edition, do we have
Right.
spells that are 2 different die rolls? Is that a thing in the space?
We do have. There are some spells like that. Generally speaking, multiple dice roll spells aren't great. I don't have a definitive list, but if you want, why don't we take that up in the Discord later?
Yeah, because for me, what I can think of off the top of my head right now is a spell that I've been using. It's a first level spell. It's Ice Knife. You roll to hit one person, then it explodes. Other people make saves, and then you can also do damage to them. But the only things I can think of that have multiple die rolls are some kind of secondary effect to other people. Not
In
necessarily.
Pathfinder, it's very common to have 2 rolls. And again, kind of going with my general rule for how I like to make homebrew is if we ever did something like that, we'd start off with something where it's quite weak. Now, I don't think it would be problematic for a spell that was effectively banishment, only 500 feet teleportation.
Would you make it cost an extra spell level?
Well, that's the thing. Is it stronger or weaker than banishment, given the following constraint? The spell teleport typically is read by most GMs as having to go to a solid piece of ground. It doesn't typically allow you to teleport high up in the sky. So if we ignore the what if you drop them 500 feet above the volcano, and you say they have to be on firm land, do you think that spell would be more powerful than banishment?
I still think so, because banishment, they come back in a minute.
Unless they're not native to the plane.
Unless they're not native to the plane. But you're usually fighting people who are.
Usually.
We have used a spell in order to get rid of somebody for a minute, being like, okay, we're going to deal with that in a minute. Let's fight something else.
Put the socks under the rug. We'll deal with them later. The RA is coming.
Or Chloe and I once used it to trap somebody. We put a cage there, so that way when they appeared, they were in a cage.
That's been a while.
I wonder how, I guess, legal that is. Is it legal to now, like, you know, can you construct something around them?
Yes.
You only have a minute.
Caught back? I guess it would
The
be.
space would have to be unoccupied.
Right.
And most would consider a cage a cage is in a space. Let me put it a different way. Rather than talk about a cage, let's talk about a chair. Can you banish someone in a chair and have them reappear in said chair? You have any problems with that?
Yeah.
I think
If I did that to you, would you feel like I have changed the rules in any way?
No.
Cool. So I think we're okay with it. And typically, a cage has to be larger than the things it contains, so you'd have to make the cage slightly bigger than the person to that to work. But this sounds like some stone-shaped shenanigans that I don't know if I support.
Yeah, I'm now thinking of all the beautiful things. And as somebody who's new to playing, somebody who's not trying to do the maximum amount of damage possible, I am trying to look for more instances where I can use spells slightly more intelligently. Now, it is a little bit... What I've currently got at my disposal is not necessarily the most useful for a cave fight.
Yeah.
Where two of us can't see in the dark.
Ooh, you do have an item that may help with that now in the Drift Globe.
Yes, Stylist will be able to, potentially.
Now, I have one more rule for my rules corner.
Let's go.
And it's one that we use, and I've never... It's not... I don't normally codify it for you. It's a thing that I use to give you more information. Now, this can't ever hurt the players, but we've talked about it's a way of using intelligence-based skill checks, knowledge-based skill checks. In Pathfinder, there is a rule known as monster lore. It allows you to roll certain sorts of checks to get information about various creatures. And the simple way of explaining it is that there is a DC set, and it's based on how rare of a type of creature is it. Goblins are pretty common. The Charask is pretty rare. Plus the challenge rating of that creature. And so you use this sort of check. Let's say it is a zombie, and so your holy text has taught you about it. A knowledge religion, or in 5e terms, a religion check. And by doing that and succeeding the check, you get a piece of information about it that you want to ask. You can ask a question about, have I studied anything about it being vulnerable to something? Or exceeding even further, getting more pieces of information. And now this is technically a house rule. The specifics in 5th edition they're not hard and fast with how do you provide information for those knowledge checks. In general, the way that knowledge checks are implemented, if you look at a typical AP, is that looking at one of these modules, Curse of Strahd, the Descent into Avernus, you can see that there are knowledge checks scattered around Arcana, religion, medicine. All of these checks have sort of fixed DCs based on who made them or other factors.
And maybe even some tiers to them. So you get this one, you get this amount, you get this one, but not, super comprehensive or across the board.
But I know that goblins are challenge rating 1/2. They're common. If you want a basic piece of information, it's DC 7. The DC 7, and that would be a history check. And we do play with the checks that you give me influence the flavor of the information you get. But I think using this, for me, this has felt like a good way to make it so I can throw complicated and more powerful things at you because you can study them. But how does it come off as a player?
I really like it because it also it feels very much as like, oh, well, in that moment, you're like, okay, what do I know about this based off of this? It's very much, we have to decide, okay, am I going to ask more about magic, vulnerable, or history, something like that?
Another game going on at once.
Yeah, I like complication. I like things to not just be...
What is your encumbrance?
I need to go get my carriage.
No!
But I like it. I think that it's fun because I try to forget a lot from character to character.
Right. You don't necessarily know If I were to throw a Yottlgurt at you, you wouldn't have a clue how to fight one.
Actually,
you would.
Literally only me, because that's how we knew how to.
Right.
So, yeah, y'all don't know what's going on.
Well,
but
my
no,
point
in general, yeah.
you try not to retain information. If I should throw something that's a very rare, powerful thing, you shouldn't know, the glowing wee spot is under that piece of carapace.
Yeah, but I do ask, do I know that a lot?
Right, and that's great. I love that.
And that's something that happens as you play D&D more as well. At first, when you're playing, that first character, everything's fresh and new. That first campaign, you're learning stuff as you go with your character. You come back to the same world, same rule system, maybe, a couple decades later or whatever, but you're coming back and you've played this game before.
Victoria knows what a beholder does.
Yeah.
But I would argue that most of the party has no idea that anti-magic exists.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or at least not on a creature.
Right. And so us now, as people who have played the game for a few years, and again, as time goes on, that gets even worse for you. You play more systems now, you know more about these other systems too. It's great. And
Big brain.
Yeah, big brain. We love these games, but then we start to learn so much about them that we have to intentionally play it a little dumb, because my third level character doesn't know anything that's going on.
So we have a question here. Do we use any technology to assist with the campaign, such as D&D Beyond, for managing the characters? Now I have sort of what's going on behind the screen, as well as I guess I manage the character sheets alongside of you. Do you have, besides what I'm going to go over, do you have anything specific you wanted to call out for this?
No.
I'm sure I will remember.
Certainly, interrupt me at will.
Great.
So
Love it.
for our campaign, we don't use D&D Beyond. We have a few things that we use. We use a character sheet that has it's got several different JavaScript implementations that allow us to. We want to increment our level. We increase that. All of that is done because we've taken and aggregated a bunch of information
Out of all
from
of our books.
our books, as well as from our homebrew, and we use that. Those sheets are very useful and have all of our modifiers calculated on them. Additionally, I use Homebrewery, which is a online tool. There's a couple things that are very similar. That is a markup language to create various kinds of items and monster stat blocks in the visual style that you'd find in things like the PHB or the Monster Manual. And sometimes for magic items, I will give players this very fancy looking sheet. Now, I am not an artist. I don't have art with that, and we don't like get art from random folks online. And so that'll typically it'll be without art, but it will have lore descriptions, mechanics, and such on those. So the homebrewery is a big one. Additionally, for notes, a lot of you are working physicals, pen and paper.
Yeah.
I currently have two main resources I use. I've used World Anvil in the past, as I'm a huge world builder, having a large amount of backlog and content and timelines and NPC repositories. Homebrewery is really great. If you're familiar with any basic markup language, it's very easy to use. And there's a few tutorials. Actually, the Unearthed Arcana subreddit has a basic tutorial with a simple project that will show you pretty much everything you know. Setting up images if you have your own artwork, if you're an artist. Setting up various forms of text blocks, monster stat blocks, even using the DM notes that you may see on the sides, or having a background image. All of that stuff is really easy to do, and it's not, I think I can say this, if you're ever interested in learning more about the homebrewery and how to use it, and you're in our Discord, put a question there. I love using the tool.
We're in the Discord all of the time. There's, 6 of us around the table, and then a bunch of other people in the back end, and we're all just hanging out together. So come join us, ask questions.
You get to interact with the elusive Alex, who you never will see, who you have at least so far, have never had him fully on screen.
Software engineers, we're all, over here.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, you're fine then. You're great. So, I would say to the D&D Beyond specific question, I know that Twitch has an integration that you can use with D&D Beyond.
The health bar thing is the biggest thing I would love from D&D Beyond.
But we do have a player playing a homebrew class that our wonderful DM has, been working on. And so I would need to spend a little bit of extra time seeing what can we do with that, or is there something else we could use to do health bars? Because we don't all have tablets, so we're not, I'm pen and paper all the way.
And in general, it's sort of difficult also Now, we haven't had as much experience with D&D Beyond. If we were to switch over to D&D Beyond, one thing I think we'd really like, and definitely I would from my previous experience with it, would be to have access to a laptop or tablet that was small that you could have at the table. Right now, we don't have access to that tech here at our table. Some of us have tablets and laptops, but we don't have anything consistent, and we certainly haven't yet put the effort into that. But D&D Beyond has worked really well for a lot of streams that I've watched.
Because of that overlay, I do admit there's something nice about having that overlay available, because then people can look at the sheet.
We could just make Alex track all the HP.
Yeah, give you another job. Why not? You know, throw more at you. But it would be nice to have for sure. But I'd say for me, less than having the tech is just to keep my brain organized the way that I've taken notes now. I've gotten very consistent in my week-to-week session notes, because I won't remember.
Besides World Anvil, which is a online way to store world-building information, I actually use I use Google Docs. I have truly hundreds of pages worth of notes.
Yeah.
I'm an over prepper, but it's one of my favorite activities, if I'm being honest, is going and I had a player ask me a very specific question about, well, what would have motivated this character? Where did this guy come from? And, well, maybe I hadn't thought of that, and so I want to flesh it out based upon what he's done in the past. Ooh, Legend Keeper is one I have not tried yet, but I'll definitely have to look into that. Google Docs, very helpful. I also know a lot of people use, what is it? Not OneNote. What's the elephant note?
Oh. Overdrive is the library. Goodness, I used to use it all. Evernote.
Evernote.
I used it in college.
Point of the elephant.
Yeah.
Evernote. There's also that as well, which is a little more searchable than some alternatives. But because I like to have page numbers and tables of contents and subheaders, Google Docs ended up being a much faster way for me to produce things.
Plus, it's easy for you to share, because I know when Jake and I joined in Campaign 1, you just sent us the page for the previous session. It's like, here's what happened last session for you. Here's the notes.
Right, and when I have new players, or if I have new players, or maybe you're switching characters because you perished in a previous unfortunate accident, what I'll provide is sort of a basic, try to keep it short, but a basic doc for the player. And so it may be, here's what our world is here's the elevator pitch for our world, elevator pitch for our session, or our campaign, and here's a couple little blurbs of things you'd know, or maybe you're related to. For Gwynwyn, if let's say Gwynwyn is coming in now, we talk about how you are longtime friends with Silas, or how you're looking for another friend somewhere else.
Yeah.
Somewhere else?
No.
Jake be happy with that. But,
Yeah, Jake, I made a pun for you. Are we friends yet?
As somebody who's run a module to a degree, I want to I do admit there's been some time. I would love to start over.
I'll roll. Hey, I'm at your table in an instant.
Great. But I would say that the biggest resource for me was the Reddit for that module. Every module's got one, and some of the most successful stuff I've done has been either stuff that I created, or very specifically Mandy mod on the Reddit has some. You guys loved everything that I had pulled from those resources. Fantastic. And to get the community around the modules, if you run them, really takes it from what's in that book to what people have had success with at their own tables.
When I ran the Descent into Avernus, now I'm not very good at running predefined modules. I go off book a lot, and eventually
book fast.
I eventually transition into more of a homebrew thing. So I like using those modules to take encounters, magic items. Absolutely. Every time a new book comes out, if I don't have someone who wants to run it, I love to go and look through the items. For example, there was an item that you received that was actually based off of something from the Descent into Avernus last campaign. We'll get into that in just a second. But having taken Descent into Avernus, what I used, if you're ever running that, is something called the Alexandrian. Had a huge overhaul for Descent into Avernus. Doesn't replace it. You still need the module. Go support your local game store. Go buy your content from Wizards of the Coast. But they actually had, hey, I didn't like that these two things didn't have a clear connection why you went from A to B. Here's a way to seed that thing beforehand so it's not jarring.
Yeah, or there's some
Be nice.
NPCs that could use more fleshing out in one direction or another to kind of take them from being like the general NPC standing at the shop, hello, I'll sell you this thing, goodbye, to really like give a little more spice and a little more character to all of them. There's a lot of resources that help with that too. And you can always toss in your own stuff as well, but again...
Like Jane?
Just like taking all of this, but taking all of these different things that other people have tested and tried at their table or tables. There's some people who just run one module and that's all they do, is they keep running it for different tables, and so they really have had that experience. So I know we kind of got a little off topic there, but you know, the online communities around pre-written modules really takes it, and you know, you've gone from your box dinner to, you know, now you've chopped up some broccoli maybe, and you're adding some extra spices and stuff. Getting a little fancy.
I have one sort of last question, I think. And feel free to answer this however you want. I didn't give you this beforehand.
Okay.
You've played high-level adventures before?
Yes.
Was there an item, or maybe two items, that were up there among your favorites? Now, Amanda, I do think I might know your favorite item.
Yeah.
But maybe, let's say, two items for Amanda. And Victoria, I also actually might know what your favorite item is as well. So perhaps a major and minor for both of these sort of things.
My armor.
I
started...
Was it your sword as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sword.
So there's this beautiful thing with starting out a low-level adventurer and starting to craft, because I was a dwarven bard blacksmith. I had blacksmithing proficiencies, and
Your family were smiths, but they were not notable ones.
They were not notable smiths. They made horseshoes and nails. And I worked on a piece of armor from level 2 to level 20. And
Your last upgrade was literally at 20.
Yep. And I spent the entirety of the campaign dumping in my resources, all of my downtime. We got new stuff that I would try to use with it. So I really spent a long time working on it and was able to work with my DM to create something that I felt was so good. It was so good. And
But so the changing, for you, it sounds like the ability to grow it and also apply, I did a new thing, how can I integrate this? That seems like it was where it was for you. Now, you had a static item. Your sword didn't change.
It didn't change, but it had family history, which was really fun for Jocelyn. A very fun flavor. It was her sister-in-law sword that was lost, and then we found it, and so she got to be the wielder. And it had an angel inside it.
It did. And now you're actually, so your sister-in-law that you're referencing, played by Victoria, of course, Lady Nyasa, was actually a member of the Runic Knights, and the party's actually met Runic Knights here.
we worked with them pretty closely.
And that sword for many, many years was actually bequeathed by the matron of the Legion onto whoever was in charge. So there's actually a silver dragon who's in charge of that order of knights, and she had kept Paralite in her hoard and only doled it out to those she deemed necessary. Not every knight commander actually received it. And so, where did that sword end up?
We don't want to talk about where that sword.
Do we want to? No. Okay, we'll talk about that in session.
I want to know what happened with the sword.
I know what happened with the sword. I rolled a lot of D100s. Like latitude and longitude.
Oh, actually, you know what? I was going to bring up something earlier about teleport.
Oh, please.
Remember whenever we played Warhammer 40k?
Okay, whoa. Gotta shift my brain. Give me some D6s. I can get in the mindset.
And we had scatter dice a couple editions back.
That's clever.
I want to teleport failure scatter dice. That's what I want from
I wanted to use scatter dice in... we've done large scale encounters before, taking a big one of the foldable mats that various companies make that show like an entire village or a forest or a castle. We had a huge battle, and I actually wanted to break scatter dice out for things like thrown rocks from giants.
Whenever we turn ourselves into giant apes and start throwing rocks at people.
Yes, when there were a bunch of giant apes. I need giant ape miniatures before you guys get polymorph, because it's gonna happen again, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, this is what you do to save your friends. If your friend's close to death, you have a clause. It's a polymorph clause. And whoever can cast polymorph, and that person will agree, I'm gonna turn you into the largest creature I can turn you into. I had this actually in our last campaign. I had one player on the polymorph claws with me, and I did it to him multiple
4
times.
spellcasters, kill one with rocks, kill one with dragons, kill one with giants. Honestly, kill the last one, just, I don't know, heart disease. Like, it's gonna be rough.
Polymorph is healing.
Yeah.
It's not, but it feels
Temporary hit points are at our hit points.
Polymorph makes you stupid.
And they're not even temporary hit. Let's write that down for next week. I want to talk about the polymorph makes you stupid. And we're going to talk about some other bad takes I've seen online.
Ooh, I like that.
Oh, absolutely. Do we have anything else big for the evening?
I don't think so.
Okay, I think we're going to call it here. We're going to hold off on D&D. Ooh. We're gonna talk, I think next week maybe we'll talk about some D&D hot takes and render our judgment upon them.
Send us your hot takes.
Stormio, thanks for hanging out with us tonight, and we'll see you all next week. Additionally, we have a session this Friday, and I think things are gonna get spicy. They might be fighting a bullet.
Yeah.
Let's see if they die.
Yeah. Also join us again on the Discord.
Bye.
Come hang out.
Peace.
Oh right, we gotta do the finger guns.
Finger guns.
This is our group.